All right, good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I'm Reiner72, and thank you out to Tabletop Game and Hobby for having me. We're gonna have a fun evening tonight. We're gonna be doing a little bit of table ready terrain tonight. If you're wondering what a lot of people's big bonus out of using an airbrush is, it's getting things done quickly, efficiently, and in a reasonably nice looking fashion, right? So I'm gonna demonstrate some things that I do to get some terrain ready, and these are quick things. These aren't going to be magical, mystical, tabletop, or I'm sorry, display quality, golden demon winners or anything like that. But this will get your terrain up to snuff, or at least give you some ideas on how to get your terrain up to snuff to the point where you can get it ready for a D&D game, a game of 40K, a game of War Machine, what have you, whatever your interest may be. So let's get started. Let's take a look at what we have here. I decided to get out 3 different kits here to demonstrate a couple of different things for us tonight. We got out 3 WizKids mini kits. These are great because they're awesome little D&D miniatures, and there's a lot of variety, so we get to play around with a lot of different examples here. So I chose out one of their, wells, and I'm gonna take out the clear water section here for later, since we're going to be using our airbrush. Makes that easier. That pops right out. So we've got stone and wood here. Those are two materials we're going to work with here. We've got these cannons, and these are straight out of the box, so we can see we've got a little bit of mold slip here. Not a biggie. We'll take care of that before we get started. And this is going to be metallics, and a little bit of wood on these. And then we've got a statue, and we're going to play this as a bronze statue. Something quick and easy, quick and dirty, and we're going to add a little bit of a brick-like color to the base itself. So one of the things to note about these is that these are pre-primed. These are pre-primed with kind of a light gray Vallejo primer. Sometimes the primer is a little bit mucky on these, so if you notice any sort of muckiness where some of the primer may have gathered, just make sure you knock that off real quick before you get started. One of the things that is really kind of a boon and also a bit of a curse of the airbrush is that it tends to reveal these mold lines. So if you ever see them as you get started airbrushing, go ahead and knock them out, take care of them. We don't need to worry about everything. That's kind of not very visible. I just want to get the part off the nose here on this one. Getting table ready. Doesn't take too much. So I've kind of blathered on a little bit as we started here, just to get you all up to speed. So I do also want to go ahead and say thank you again for joining me tonight. If you have any questions, if you have any concerns, definitely love to hear them as we go along. And if I don't get to them immediately, don't worry, I will do my best to get back to them. I do have some invisible helpers out there that might be making sure I'm keeping on track. Sorry, don't hurt me. So I'm just gonna knock a little bit of this off. I don't need to be too perfect here. These are great little D&D minis to get ready. So I'm kind of playing these or painting these in the fashion that I would imagine for a D&D scenario. So these are we're gonna paint these with some steels. So some dark steel colors, and it's still a little bit rough there. Got my liking. Some dark steel colors, and a bit of wood coloration as well. So we've also got wood on this, and a bit of stone. So we're going to do gray stone here, and more of a terracotta here. So let's see, where do we want to start? Let's go ahead and start with the actual statue here. So we're going to run some some metallics through the airbrush. So metallics are a little bit of an interesting thing to run through an airbrush. I've already gone ahead and fired up the compressor, so I've got full air. And if anybody's curious, my compressor, I've got my air regulated at about 30 psi. That doesn't necessarily mean I hold down on the trigger all the time with the air for full 30, but that's the maximum that I'm running at. And I'll kind of let you know if I kind of feather it in with a little bit of a light touch as I go. But that's what I'm running at. I've got a brush out here. This is a Harder & Steenbeck Infinity. The big thing to know about this brush right now is that this is a 0.4 millimeter needle. so it's a nice wide needle tip. You don't necessarily need anything fine tipped, really, for too much in airbrushing miniatures. It's nice to have something smaller, but really you want something nice and big like this, especially for the kind of miniature paints and stuff that we're normally using, such as like Citadel, Reaper, Pro Acryl, things like those. They go really well through a brush this size. So I'm just kind of emptying it out of a little bit of water that we had in there, making sure my tip is clear, and running a little bit of fresh water to make sure nothing's clogged up. Always run a little bit of water through your airbrush before you get started. Just good advice. I don't always do the right thing, but sometimes I pretend. And just wet my whistle there just a little bit. So I was saying I'm going to start off with a little bit of metallic airbrushing. And actually, let's make this simple. I think, man, you know what? I don't know if they have any more of this stuff in stock, but if they do, I know there's been a run on this stuff. This Vallejo metal color stuff. Oh, we're seeing bronze, aren't we? What else? So with red. Now with red, let's do this. Let's do steels. Steels will be fun. I'm just mixing this up. I've got a little mixer doodad over here if you're wondering what that is. And just getting this all mixed up, of course, you know, the old shaker as well. And the nice thing about this particular metallic is that this goes pretty well, almost straight into the airbrush. I'm going to put just a small bit of airbrush flow improver in there to start with, but not too much. I tend to like to thin down my airbrush paints with quite a bit of flow improver, but in the case of metallics, I keep it light. It's one thing to start with. We've got a lot of steel here to work with, so we'll take care of both this and the cannons as well. So, the best part about the base coat is this always goes on fairly quickly, and I'm going to get a small holder. Second. This is just a simple wine cork with a little bit of sticky tack on it. Make it nice and simple for everyone. And yeah, you really want to open it up with metallics. Metallics have a specific kind of flake in them. Somebody, man, I'm so terrible about remembering the name of what it's called. Shoot, somebody'd have to double check me on that. But it does tend to get a little bit chunky, a little bit wonky in an airbrush, so that's another reason why you really want a big airbrush needle for airbrushing metallics as well. And I'm just feathering it in. I'm also not pushing down fully on the air here. So I'm probably taking it at about 75% air, half to 3/4, because I'm trying to let it dry as I go. So I'm just going for a real basic coat here. Again, it's primed already with a light gray primer color. So this is kind of how this metallic's going to look over that. If you want a different look, there's nothing wrong with hitting this with like a black primer, and it's going to be a much darker start to this. But like I said, nice and easy, nice and quick, and that's now nice and base coated. So we can take it from here, but we're gonna let this dry for a moment, and we'll move on and work on some of our other bits as well. Like I said, we've got 2 cannons here as well. We're gonna take these up in steels, and then we're actually gonna do a little bit of back and forth with the airbrush and the old traditional brush. There is nothing wrong with going back to the airbrush after you've started on something with the traditional brush. It's a great idea. It's a great way to get started on things. And this is kind of how you save time a little bit. Just not worrying about overspray sometimes, and then just going back and slopping paint on it. It's kind of funny. I don't feel like I have any right to talk about getting things painted in a timely fashion. I'm a horribly slow painter. Don't let that stop you from trying. Sometimes you'd be surprised. There's my inspirational message for the evening. Hopefully that helps. Yeah, we're gonna have a little bit of that flashing in there. That's okay.
Tabletop ready, not gorgeous, not great, but hey, it'll work. Sometimes that's what you need, you know? That's another thing to point out, too. If you're ever worried about how well your army is painted, how well all of your crap is painted, not crap, I'm sorry. All of your stuff, let's say. Stuff. How about that? All of your collection, and you're like, oh, this just doesn't look great.
You know, it looks awesome. Everything all together. It's just something about everything being all painted and coordinated. It looks good. So
there's always there's always excellence in composition as well. Sometimes you just drown out the little things with the overall appeal. Yeah, the nice thing about applying metallics with an airbrush when you can is that the finish that you get on them is very smooth. This is opposed to doing it with a traditional brush. You tend to get a lot of texture out of it, which is not a bad thing. I usually use the texturing to get kind of a brush steel look a lot of times, but sometimes I want more of a smooth look. It just really depends on what you're in the mood for, what you're going for. So in this case, we're getting a nice smooth look because I'm actually going to add a little bit of shading in here before we're done. There we go. We've already got those two started. So I want to go back to this, and I want to show you what we have here. Oh, and also, one other note. You might notice that and this might not be completely obvious, I'm also touching these with just air. Sometimes I'm not pulling back on the trigger to put paint out. I'm just hitting it with air as I go. So apply a little bit of paint, and if you have a little, if you're thinking it's not quite dry yet, just a little bit of air, not full blast, will help dry that paint. Thank you for pointing that out. I always do appreciate questions, etc. And oh, I did do something here real quick while this is drying. I'm giving this quite a bit of time to make sure that this is solid here, because we're going to apply a little bit of a shade or a wash here, and I want that to not activate the undercoat. That's actually a nice thing to also point out here too. When you're applying coats of paint with an airbrush, they tend to be a lot thinner. Applying wet coats of paint over them, especially things with mediums that might activate, like solvents or anything like that, you can run the risk of damaging the paint or altering the paint underneath. So keep that in mind. It's a little bit more prone to it with the thinness based on the airbrushing, opposed to hand brushing something in. There we go. Point that out. All right, let's go ahead.
I'm going to bust out a quick little mix of something. This is going to be a... Oh, there we go. That's what I'm looking for. Sorry, wrong piece. This is a quick little mix of Citadel stuff. Something that my friend Genuine Vision got me started on. This is called Magimix. This is 1 part Nuln Oil, 1 part Agrax or Shade, 1 part Lamy and Medium. Just all mixed together and ready to go. Nice little distro on this. I really enjoy using this as a tinting piece for tinting. So I'm actually going to bust this out, and we're going to do a little bit of knockdown on these metallics, and we're really going to blast these in. What I was looking for. That's it. Add a little bit of water to that. Really going to blast these in to get a lot of what's the word I'm looking for? Texture and differentiation here on the mini. Part of the reason that I'm pointing out that I'm using Magimix and not just something like Nuln Oil, that little bit of brown really brings a lot into something. Let me apply the wash to one side of this statue, and then we'll take a look at the opposite side, because even while it's drying, it's going to be a little bit more pronounced as it's drying, and you can apply multiple coats of this. You'll see a little bit of a difference. with the hue here, and that's important. That's also something else to point out here too. If you want, you can always change up from brown to something else as well. Wherever it takes you. Things like blue are really good to bring in the steels. So blue wash, a little bit of blue, a little bit of black, something like that also works just as well. So if you can see, kind of on some of the flatter areas here, it looks maybe a little bit more, maybe kind of like a sterling silver, like it's a little bit dirty, a little bit dingy. Whereas on the other side, you see how kind of flat and clean that looks? That's from the airbrush. We like that, but we don't want that, right? So that's why we're bringing in this this wash here. Let me get out. Let's get out all of it. And I'm doing this part first as well, because this is going to take a little bit of time to dry. So we want to just let this sit to the side, and we'll come back to it. This is another part of what I wanted to touch on while we're talking about how to get things done quickly for things like this. Think about how you're going to go about it. If you're batch painting, do all these steps at once on everything, right? It's tedious. It still sucks. I'm bad at batch painting. I stink at the discipline needed for it, but I mean, it's the way to do it. If you can, it makes it way easier. And time out your steps to things like, you know, this, where you have to wait on something to dry, and then we can focus on something else. And usually we can kind of trade back and forth on those kind of steps. Maybe you want to apply a little bit of a varnish and you need to let that dry, or maybe there's, you know, some sort of technical effect that you need to set for a while, etc., whatever it may be. So, you know, not doesn't have to be a complex set of steps, but just kind of keep that in mind if you're thinking like, oh man, I gotta wait forever on this. Like, oh, what else can I do, right? Man, we really are sucking up all that Magimix. Hold on. I'm gonna have to get out another bottle. Alright, so we're also gonna apply it here to the Canon. I'm just using an old messy brush for this. And we might actually go back to this Magimix again later here for the wood. That just really depends. I just want to get the metal started. For two reasons. We're going to shade and highlight the metal both a little bit. And we're going to use the airbrush to make this nice and quick and easy. That's the other part. The thing that I like about the airbrush that makes it a great tool is it makes it easy to make nice, consistent, and well-blended gradients and shades. That's the number one reason I like the airbrush. It has nothing to do about the look about it, and it has nothing to do about the speed. But being able to do something nice and quick and easy like that on something like this, we'll see. But for now, we have to just let this sit and rest. Let me show you a little bit of a before and after so far. You can see how that one's a little bit more brown. So we're getting a little bit more of a weathered look in it. Looks like it's been out in the rain. It's gathered a little bit of dirt, a little bit of grime, and could be at sea. Could be you know, mounted at a, I don't know who would have these kind of cannons. Cannon-y type people. Cannonites, maybe. But yeah, I imagine them being on the coast of something. Maybe out in the field. Maybe a field cannon, kind of ish, just smaller wheels. This definitely feels like a boat cannon. Boat cannon with these wheels. That being said, let's move along. I'm gonna hot swap my airbrushes here and leave that one full of metallics. I've got a second airbrush I'm gonna be using. This is a 0.35 millimeter needle. It's an Iwata Eclipse. Also a nice brush, good workhorse. High quality here. I like my hard-earned Steenbeck better, I'm not gonna lie, but this is a great brush. Treated me wrong yet. When I say hot swap, I use a quick disconnect coupler. These are all Badger brand ones. There are other brands as well. I think Iwata has a brand. I think Master actually has a brand too, funny enough. But whatever works, this is great because if you have multiple airbrushes, it's great for switching them. If you have a single airbrush, it's also good for just taking the airbrush off. So, $7. Or, no, $11 for a male and a female, and then like $7 for another male. I really, 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 really recommend that to anybody who's getting into airbrushing. All right. I'm going to get out some actual acrylic paint here. I'm going to get out a little bit of our dark warm gray from Pro Acryl. Yeah, I need to talk to you guys at Tabletop again about Pro Acryl. I want to get you guys hooked up. This is great stuff. You can use anything else here of equivalence. It's literally what it says. It's dark warm gray, so something like that. I think that's like a Dawnstone, maybe something like that. Because we're going to knock this down just a little bit more. We can go darker if we want, but not necessary. We're going to do a little bit of this washing thing. And this is this kind of stone technique, if you're doing any sort of like cobblestone type stuff, works there as well. We're gonna go for something that's a little bit more worn and weathered on the well, a little bit more organic as well. So we'll just knock out this part. And when you're doing something with ridges like this, make sure you rotate the model around quite a bit, so you get all the angles and you get the paint everywhere you want it to be. Because your airbrush is a very directional tool, and it won't get into everything unless you make sure that you get it into everything, right? So just make sure, keep turning it around, make sure everything looks right. Yeah, because it always sucks when you're like halfway through the next layer and you're like, oh man, I missed like a whole series of things just because I didn't turn it a certain angle. So take your time with that. Don't rush. This is where we get to have a little bit of fun with some angles. So I'm going to take the top of this and make this a stone slab. And we're gonna base this in with the airbrush. We're gonna shade it in with the airbrush. And then we're also gonna put in some more red terracotta-esque bricks. And paint God's willing, by the end of tonight's 2-hour stream, we'll have all these pieces done and taken care of. So again, if you have any questions, concerns, ideas on where I can find the Lost Ark of the Covenant, I'm all ears. I do thirst for power, but that's not my goal. It's only a means to an end. There we go. Very nice. Very nice. Good stuff. You know that Magimix thing? Let's go back to that. I gotta say, it's a really good time. Oh, there it is. I just use, I've got a bunch of condiment cups. They make great containers for literally everything, building and painting wise. I use them for random like paints and stuff like this all the time, the lids and the cups both. So if you're wondering what this is, I use just random containers and blister packs from stuff. Don't be afraid to use trash where appropriate. Always handy little bits like this. I use a lot of cardboard and stuff for priming and, or not priming anymore, but spraying things out in the yard with rattle cans on them. So just always always fun uses. We're going back to that Magimix because that adds a nice amount of brown to the mix, but we're not gonna end there. Hang tight though. This is where things get fun. So the nice thing about the airbrush, and I want to emphasize this as well, is the airbrush is not a tool that I really emphasize using by itself. It's something that you can. Oops, we're using a little bit too much there. We're reactivating some of the paint. Be careful. It's something that
you want to use in conjunction with your other tools. It's another part of your toolbox, right? But don't be afraid to go back and forth either. Just because you've airbrushed a bunch of stuff and it looks really good, don't be afraid to go back in there, because it's not going to look complete unless you really get in there and finish it out. That's one of those skills that you'll want to just practice. Just keep practicing trying it. Like, even if it fails, keep trying. Keep trying. We're gonna let this dry. We should probably let that dry a little bit more earlier, but we got what we needed here. And I'll show you how to do a little bit of directional shading on that as well. But I also need to let that dry for a moment. We're gonna bring in, let me make sure I get this out. Gosh, I think they have the inks out there from Scale 75, the Inktense ones. We'll use the Inktense green here. I love this Inktense green. Any good green ink like this will work if you don't have Scale 75 stuff. It's a very nice, dark, rich, kind of, it's almost a jade green, I feel like, but not quite. It's kind of like between a foresty and a jade green. It's kind of somewhat in between. I was thinking there's another good color, pretty much like that. And of course, if you do not have an ink, a paint will work as well if you turn it into a wash. A little bit of a surfactant if you have flow improver or any sort of like medium, Lamian medium will work as well. A bit of water and a little bit of paint will make a nice simple wash. So if you don't have access to an ink, also acceptable. Don't be afraid to experiment around a little bit. Try things out, right? So we're gonna blast this in here as well. I'm gonna need more. Yep, using all the Magimix tonight. Man, we need to get out the backup. It's one of those kind of nights. Man, it's odd. It's I think the mods are asleep. I'm gonna self-advertise. I like to stream on the weekends. I usually usually like listen. Yeah, here it is. Oh no, secret watcher out there. Oh no, I got caught. I was just saying I love streaming on the weekends and listening to I've been listening to Persona soundtrack remixes and stuff, and that's been a blast. So if you enjoy listening to my dulcet tones over some very anime nerdy music, feel free to join me Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Here it is. There's the drop. That's how we do it. Nice and subtle, right? Oh man, I was just like, oh, it's so quiet. Too quiet. There we go. Nice and subtle, just a little bit of texture there. It looks like it's actually sat out in the rain for a little while. Basically, it looks like it's gathering dirt and grime, etc., what have you, in the rain. Yeah. Whatever might be around, which is another good thing to point out too. Obviously, if there's something that's dominant in the scene that you're setting, like if it's a foresty scene, bring in some greens. You know, if it's an oceany scene, bring in, well, not necessarily, but you get what I'm saying. Like, bring in some appropriate colors and stuff like that, lighting wise, hue wise. Change up your stones, change up your bricks, change up the metals that are using, I should say. In fact, another good one to point out will be the wood that we're looking at here. Wood tends to change a lot from locale to locale. So make sure you you don't have to get too intense on that, but if you add a little pinch of something, it's always nice. All right. Let's see. How are we going to start this wood tonight? I think I don't want to necessarily go straight to that. That seems a little aggressive. Let's get out a couple of my fun colors here. This color. This color. We're gonna play around with some of these pro acrylic colors, and again, if you don't have these, there's equivalents elsewhere. This mahogany is more of a red mahogany. I think I think this one's close to. It's not the Vallejo mahogany. It's close to one of the mahoganies out there as well. But this is I
highly recommend this one. And then we're also going to work with the dark golden brown a little bit here too. Roll. So this is actually going to be a hand brushing step, and I just need this mucky brush again, so it's not a very good brush. And do I have something on my wet palette here? I have some room on my wet palette. If you don't have a wet palette, don't worry about it. If you're wondering what I'm talking about, this is a very simple homemade one. I've got sponges, parchment paper, water, etc. Got a mess of paints out here. Some of them might be reusable. And the big thing that I use it for is just to make it easy for my paint to last for a while I'm using it. It doesn't dry out. So that's nice and useful. And let's see if I've got any paint left in this bottle. I think it's like right on its last legs. I'm gonna need just a little bit. Yeah, we got a good amount. There we go. So, like I said, we're gonna go back and forth a little bit here with the airbrush and the hand brush. Don't get scared. And the best thing is with the airbrush, it's if you're taking it really light on the airbrush and you're painting thin, kind of like how I do, you don't necessarily have to. Not saying that. I'm just saying if you take it thin, if you get a little bit of overspray on something, usually it's not a big deal. You're not going to see it very well, and even if you do see it, just a little bit of a spray with whatever was there to begin with that you just oversprayed will usually kind of help get it back to where it was. So it's not the end of the world or anything like that, and you can use that confidence and go forth and get experimental with things. You can even kind of glaze things back in. So really, when you start looking at working your brushwork back over something that you've airbrushed, look into glazing and just how to bring your paints down to a very thin consistency using water and mediums. Different paints just behave in different ways, so it's not the same for all, and it just takes a little bit of practice, but something I very, very much recommend when you kind of go beyond what we're doing tonight and bringing stuff together in some of your more loved projects, I should say. Some things that you're not just kind of slapping together to make sure that things are ready and looking good. What's GW calling it now? Battle ready versus parade ready. So yeah. All right, I'm taking this in super quick. I'm not doing this with the airbrush for a couple of reasons. The biggest reason is I don't want to overspray the metal with brown, and we're taking this in with the intent of making a very nice thick base coat. And I'm using a very rough brush here, so I can kind of play around. I'm not too worried about damaging the brush or anything like that. So it's a very old, well-loved brush. Put it that way. Totally hasn't been abused and thrown about, I promise. And this gives us actually just a little bit of texture and roughness. So what we're going to do here in just a bit is we'll go back over this with the airbrush and shade the wood from there. So I'm going to hit this with the mahogany. We'll hit that with a little bit of wash because we'll bring in the shadows. So what we're doing is we're using Wash Tech to get the get the recesses and tint our initial tones. Excuse me. And then we're using the airbrush to get a little bit of that shading and lighting, because we don't necessarily need much. It doesn't take much lighting normally. Just a little bit here and there, get it looking good, especially on a whole, on the aggregate, right? So you don't need to be exact everywhere. You just need to be close enough everywhere. Sometimes I forget that. Trust me, I'm bad about letting things go sometimes. Oop, don't lick the brush, Rainer. Breaking that habit. Trying to break bad habits. That feels like a lot of paint. Paint education is just breaking bad habits or breaking the habits that you just made because they worked before, but now they don't. That's not a bad thing. It's a good thing. It's a good thing. not going to explain why it's a good thing, but it's again, I'm just kind of rambling on here because I'm doing a little bit of base coating again. This is mahogany, just taking it super thick here with just a really old mucky brush that I beat the heck out of. Say I'd beaten the devil out of it, but I think I've beaten devils out of this brush for many years, like painting chaos demons. It's a good time. Yeah, this mahogany, such a nice color. I use a lot of this. Having a few dark, rich, saturated colors on hand is really nice for a number of reasons. The big reason I find is I like using base coats like this. Just for the fact that I can get something at least, 75% the color I want just in one pass. Because you don't necessarily have to sit here and go, okay, I got 75% of what I want, let me do another pass. You just move on to the next color. And it fills in the holes. If that makes sense. Basically, your next color, if you're airbrushing or applying colors like this, you can make up for the what's missing, what's coming next. Another way to look at that too is you can fix a lot of mistakes once you've gone up through your high tone by going back to your mid tone. It can cover up a lot of overspray. It can even add a lot of your transitions, etc. So just keep that in mind. That might be a little bit. I might not be talking about something irrelevant right in front of me, but it's something to just bear out. Never panic. There's always a way to fix something, and repainting stuff is pretty easy to do, especially with an airbrush, because it doesn't really glop on paint very much. So yeah, that's all. Don't panic. All right, we've got one last little bit, and this thing's definitely pretty wet still as far as the first amount of wash that we put down on that. Now I might need to get out my heat tool. I've got a nice little heat tool that doesn't get too warm, that I like using, and it doesn't smell horrifyingly bad like a hairdryer. I really, really do not like the smell of heating elements. Elephants? Wow. I don't think that beer was that strong. Sorry. Very well. Oh, dear, right. But works out well for me, so I might hit it with a little bit of that to help that dry. One caveat with that is that heat can kind of screw some stuff up, like paint-wise. So you just gotta be kind of careful to do with heating things to make them dry faster. Drying is a factor of air exchange and heat. So, blowing on your mini works, but it's not as good as blowing on your mini with hot air. It's just the way that paint cures, it might screw it up. So just keep that in mind. Since we are not doing anything where we're too worried about quality of the end result, because we're doing kind of a weathered well, whatever, Also, I'm not too worried about getting a super clean coat down into the well, because it's not very visible as a whole. So I'm of the mind of you don't need to paint what you can't see, but if you can kind of see a hint of something, just slap a little bit of saturation on it, because I think that can kind of throw you sometimes. You're like, oh, that's just unpainted, versus, oh, he hit it with a little bit of a tone. Okay. They were looking out for us, right, as the viewer. All right, almost done slapping this on. Let's do that as a here. Never really considered what the construction of a well is, material-wise, outside of wood and stone. I guess there's a little bit of metal there. So that looks like a metal rod and a metal handle. Although I'm not quite sure why it's so laden. Here, sorry. There's a little bit of water in there, so we might hit that with some Well, let's do this. Got a little bit of dark blue here. Is this any good on my palette? I'm just kind of blocking things in. This is a not very visible. We just want to kind of make the color visible sort of thing. Got some nice mucky blue-green water in there now. All right. Cool. All right, let's get that heat tool out real quick. What are we doing on time? 7:41. All right. I'm gonna try to dry this up just very slightly. I'm gonna kill my mic for just a moment. Don't worry. All right, that should have helped. All right. So I mentioned I wanted to do a little bit. Wanted to do a little bit of green weathering as well. Hang tight. So I'm gonna let that dry just a little bit more. It'll be a little bit, just a couple more steps here before we get back to our airbrush here. But we're looking pretty good, and looking good here as well. Cool. Let's go ahead and get this stonework done. I'm breaking out some burnt red here. This is a little bit. Now let's keep going this route. It's like this is a little bit bright over this this gray primer, but no, let's keep going. Nice and thick here. Get burnt red. Just it's nice deep dark red. Good base tone. I feel like piston red. It's kind of close to it. I'm trying to think of what else is close to it. I just really like the consistency on this one. So this is one of the areas I want to tint this, and then we're going to shade this with the airbrush. That's where the airbrush really comes back in. Get to shade and tint a few things here, and then we get some extra weathering, some finishing touches. All right. We need to bring in some rusty tones here. So this is another quick thing. Do here. It's fun to play around with. one. Hang tight. We find it. Oh no! I should have looked. I should have looked for this earlier. Sorry, everyone. There it is. Sewer water and orange fire here. We're gonna play around with these real quick. Let's get out another one of those pieces of plastic. So if you have any questions so far, let me know. Totally open to answering any and all questions. Use the bottom of this real quick. We're gonna make a little bit of a rust wash here out of this Vallejo Game Color Orange Fire. So I'm literally breaking the paint using a little bit of water here from my paint pot. And I'm kind of mixing it up to the point where I've got literally the paint itself starts to separate. So it's coming out. And this is the fun part. Again, trying to do this quick. We get to play around. We get a little bit too much somewhere. That's fine. Just move it. This will dry pretty subtly, so don't you worry. And again, we can always move some of this around here too. Trying to make sure that we've got some concentration in some certain areas. Nice and messy, right? We'll let that dry. We're going to reuse that a bit on these two as well, but a little bit more subtle. So I'm going to bring this in around the banding. Again, we've got a little bit of some mold slip on these guys, but that's okay. We're going to live with it. These aren't gorgeous. We're just getting them ready for game night. That is the plan. Now you may have noticed there's a couple of other metal bits on these that we need to handle. And yes, I'm using my finger eraser. Sorry. Proper. It's terrible. Never do that. It's terrible. Bye. See how subtle that fades in. That's all we want. We can add some more. We're going back to this. We can even already see how the horse is starting to turn out. There. Go. All right. I needed to go back to something real quick that I have. Let's use this one. Need to go back to some metallics. So that same. Hey Tavistan, what is the yellow color? That is Vallejo Game Color Orange Fire, and we have broken that down with a lot of water, just pure water from our paint pot, and we broke that on purpose to do a bit of a rust effect here. So it's drying here on both the cannons and the statue we've started on. So we're just doing a little bit of generic weathering, a little bit of all-purpose kind of stuff. And in fact, we can add a little bit of that to the podium here, which would probably be a good idea considering, rust runs off, right? So we'll get to it as quickly as possible. I'm trying to keep my keep my rounds going here if you haven't noticed, so that I'm always kind of waiting on something to dry. That's ideal, right? So that's what I'm up to. Hey, Tavistan, thanks for joining us. How are you doing tonight? How are you doing tonight, stranger that I have never met before? Good people, good people. All right. And Tavistan, we're just doing a quick kind of how-to on how to, oh my goodness. Quick little stream on how to get some terrain ready for game night. You probably know how slow of a painter I am, but sometimes I can kind of put my mind to it and forget to paint a side of a wood panel. That's good. Good, Reiner. Good job. Fix that. There we go. Taking it in nice and thick for a base tone. It's okay for right now. Still got some of that mahogany left. Good times. Another thing to use in place of the orange fire, just by the way, Citadel's Rise of Rust, if you water it down, also makes a very similar effect. I like that a little bit better than trying to dry brush it onto things. Just because I find the consistency of Rise of Rust a little wet to begin with. I don't know if anybody else really runs into that, but yeah, it's just it also makes a nice rust color when it's watered down. Same way, just a little bit different consistency. There we go. Right on. It's good to have people joining us. Again, any and all questions are welcome. We've got Super Secret Helper watching out for me. Make sure I'm staying on track, staying on target. I'll get a slight electrical jolt if I'm not. So, you know, keeping me honest. And let's get out some of our sewer water. Yeah, let's work with sewer water. Why not? Using Secret Weapon sewer water. So here's something I want to point out. I believe Tabletop still carries all the Secret Weapon washes. So here's a nice little bit of info on using these. You might find that they are a little glossy. They have a bit of an ink-like finish to them. So I use a little bit of, oh, that's not the right one. I use a little bit of Liquitex matte medium when I use these. And got it kind of tucked away in the back of my storage here. Me being prepared would be an interesting concept. We'll get to it one day. Put a drop of this on the palette. And I'm just looking at time here. I don't know if we want to necessarily take a break or not. Let me at least apply this here. Did we want to do a 5-minute break today? Gotcha. Yeah, I just give people kind of a moment here. Make sure I'm set. Let me get this applied, and then we'll take a look at that break. So I have some paints and washes drying as we do so. Sure thing. Be just a couple minutes here. I'm gonna mix this up, and oh, that actually has a bit of a texture in it too. Cool. So I'm using an old mucky brush. Mix that up. We're using a bit of sewer water from Secret Weapon. I've mixed in matte medium, and I've mixed in just a little bit of water. And we're going to mix this into our stonework here, or brickwork. Oh, that's nice. It's nice brown gray. Perfect. That'll work out for us. I like that over the dark red. Looks weathered. It doesn't look old or just muddy. It just it looks like it's got a lot of grime. That's what I needed. Debating between this and baby poop, also from Secret Weapon. It's probably their best wash. The worst name, but the best name. The best worst name, I guess. I don't know. Got me to buy it. Peace out to Les Bursley. All right, so let's go ahead and take a quick break. While we do that break, I am going to I'm gonna make sure that all these get dried out, and then we are going to load up. Let's see, one more wash here, and then get the airbrush going. Actually, I'm gonna let you guys know what I'm gonna do here before we start doing it, just so while you guys take a break and get yourself situated. I'm actually gonna apply just a little bit of our Magimix here. Also to the wood tone that we've applied. So while you're on break, I'm going to do that. That's going to dry, and when you come back, we'll see how it is. So let's go ahead and hit that, and see you in 5. All right, welcome back. All right, I didn't quite get to what I wanted to do yet. I still need to apply that wash, so we're gonna do that real quick. I did just apply a few small bits of metallic, and I needed to do that before I did this wash. So we're gonna blast that out real quick and do a little bit of a rope tone. We're going back to our Magimix again for the wood, and you can see how thick I'm putting it on here. Again, I'm kind of trying to rotate each of these as I go, so we don't sit and kind of wait on individual projects. We're kind of doing a batch paint of random things, I guess, is the best way of putting it. So I'm just kind of trying to show you a way to get this done kind of quick. It's outside of my milieu. I'm usually not quite a fast painter, but it can be done. I promise. If I can do it, you can too. It's like the Scat Man. Man, yeah, okay. I need this on tap. That's what I need. Being aggressive with the Magimix. Yeah, tabletop's getting more money next week, I guess. You guys still have all the shades in stock, right? Hasn't been a run on the Null and Oil yet. Out there like, yeah, we'll just mark that up. He's coming, guys. Oh, nice and quick. Ooh, I just got word that both the gloss and regular are in. I still need to try out that new there's that gloss one that just came out with the Necron release. And while I'm not huge on the gloss medium, I thought the color itself looked interesting. That might be fun to play with. Lots of cool things to do with metallics and different washes and shades. Both gloss and the regular matte kind of GW shades. Go. And again, we'll let that dry. We've got a little bit more to do over here on this one. Let's go ahead and hit this with a little bit of, guess what? We're going back to old school here. Oh, not that one. Here we go. I mentioned it before, baby poop. It's a real thing. People have made money selling baby poop. It's true. We're gonna use a little bit of that. It's a nice green brown. That's what it does. In fact, I think it's made with a little bit of green and orange pigment in it, if I remember the recipe correctly. So it also breaks down kind of interestingly. You can see it even separating out just a little bit here. So we're going to apply this in a few spots here. And this makes for some nice grime. And we want it kind of into areas where the grime would settle from rain and weathering. Weather, not weathering. This is the weathering, yes. And I didn't even bother with the matte medium this time. Just said, let's slap it on. Good times. Alright, so that's that. It's that nice and easy. We'd applied that one wash over here. I actually want to go back over this baby poop. Just seeing how subtle that is, that's cool. I'm gonna mix that down with some water. And you can see how aggressive I'm being here with the washes. This is, again, a very old screwed up brush that I just kind of use for various things like this. So Do not use an ice brush like this. And I'm almost dry brushing this this on right now. See how that kind of streaks on? That's going to give us a nice look in the end. That dries. We want inconsistency and randomness with our weathering tones. So I need to paint one little thing while a bunch of things are drying. We've literally got everything drying at the moment, which is a good thing. It's not a bad thing. Let's do one little quick stop here. I'm gonna get out something called Iroko from Scale 75. It's a good dirty. It's a very good dirty color. I agree with Tavistan's comment there. It's one of the things that Secret Weapon is really really known for. Is that these are weathering acrylics, weathering washes and shades. So when you're looking at them, you get a lot of interesting tones and colors that work specifically for that. So just keep that in mind if you're shopping around for paints. That's really what Secret Weapon focuses on, and they make good product. I'm not gonna lie, it's good stuff. I really need to, man. I'd really like to talk to somebody more in the know. No, they're working with Reaper, so they have a very similar feel to Reaper. If you've ever used Reaper's paints, I don't know if that is still true nowadays, but it is not. Still good paint. Still good. Getting a little bit of this Iroko in here, so we're just doing a quick tone here on the rope. And good evening to some of our visitors here. Krabby. I believe that's a good start to the day. I'm not quite sure how to pronounce that, but welcome to the channel. Great time to put out a reminder. If you have any questions or anything, let me know. We're just doing a quick class how to get these WizKids minis kind of up to snuff on the quick. Oh no, I accidentally pulled up some paint by being rough with this. Oops. It's almost weathered, doesn't it? Weird. Not a problem. Don't panic. Here's the best part. Let's start airbrushing that. All right. I've got a bit of that light or dark warm gray in my airbrush, and let's charge the airbrush compressor back up. I'm going to empty this out. And one of the things that I want to point out is when I'm emptying out the airbrush, I don't necessarily empty out the entire color. If I'm moving up through a different shade or a color, mixing in a little bit of the previous color is a good way to help transition into the next color. So if you leave a little bit in there, not a big deal. Just don't leave too much in there. Sometimes that can be a bit of a problem. I'm going to also put in a good amount of flow improver here. I literally put in about equal parts, if not more, flow improver into most of my airbrush mixes. So there we go. We want to take it nice and thin. This is going to be a somewhat lighter gray tone, and we're not going to go very high on this. We're going to take this kind of light. The idea is that we're getting all these gray tones a little bit lighter, a little bit more on the subtle side of things, using the airbrush to make it quick. That out of the way. All right, clearing the airbrush out. We've got out our water. And so what I'm gonna do here is, because this has very deep ridges, I'm gonna blow down here, and I want to do a little bit too much excess. Soak that up. A little bit too much excess there. I'm gonna blow directionally downwards to get a little bit of a directional look to this. There we go. That's all we need on that. Super easy. That totally took the value of that up quite a bit. Value being the light and brightness of the model.
We still got some wet tones here, but you see how that's mostly dried now. Let's do a little bit of subtle shading here. We'll take a little bit of let's pick a direction here. Let's say the light's coming from this direction a bit. I'm taking this in very thin. We'll hit all the corners a little bit. Super simple. Now, you might be a little bit concerned about doing this, trying to get it away from the red. Remember the angle of your air. If you bring it in, just when you start seeing it up here on the edge, that's where you stop. So you kind of bring it in. I don't know if that's easy to see. Just bring it in, bring it down. You can see that a little bit, just a little bit of that. It'll mute down once it dries. Nice, easy way to get some tone onto the stone there. We're gonna put a little bit of extra tone and light here. We're gonna darken it out that way. So just hang tight on that part. And we'll swap off here because now we're gonna do a little bit of black shading. About anything, yeah, that's true. That is true. It's about anything. Questions, concerns. I don't know if I can help out with anybody's love life, but I'll try. Oh, that's metallic in that brush. Never mind. Hang tight. Leave that. Let's go. We're gonna load up some non-metallic. Actually, no. We need to load up our metallic tone, and yeah, sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. We do need to unload that. There we go. All right, getting ahead of myself. We've got some of our steel tone again from Vallejo Metal Color. This is one of their airbrush lines, or at least it's made to go through an airbrush. But you can really brush it on. It's fantastic paint by itself. If you're wondering what I'm doing when I kind of lean down to the side like that, I'm emptying my airbrush in a small waistband. It's kind of fixed. I use that to kind of dump water and airbrush paint and stuff in and blow into. It's part of the reason why I wear a mask. It's not there's not enough particulate in the air to really damage a whole lot of things. It leaves dust in the room, so we have a filter, but no like major ventilation for this. I do not use solvents. I don't use anything that's like of a major breathing risk. Just normal non-toxic acrylic paints. So just keep that in mind when you're making decisions about your ventilation. Really like to point that out. I've not always been good about my ventilation or my mask wearing, etc. Do what you need to do. Do as much as you can do, as much as makes you feel safe and comfortable. That's the best. Oh, that is terrible. Hold on. But that's the best advice I can give you is if you're not comfortable, do more. Never feel bad about not being comfortable. Which model type assembly would you think would be the hardest, military or Gundam, or maybe some Warhammer type stuff? But I really don't think so. Let's see. Actually, great question. I'm gonna try to say this. Krabiukas. I've done all three. It's been a little while since I've done some military stuff. I did some 155 millimeter howitzer long toms, used for Warhammer 40k. Military stuff I find fairly straightforward, but there's a lot of really like extra that you can add to those minis. I'm going to add some of this aluminium. Sorry, it's spelled aluminium, so I'm going to put it that way. In here while we talk. So I find that kind of on the similar to a lot of Gunpla. So I built a lot more Gunpla. I've got a bunch up here and stuff. I've only painted a few though. They're really made to be articulated, so there's a lot of complexity in them. Although some of the simpler and cheaper kits, not so bad. Really a totally different animal. I'm also going to load up some matte black paint into our other brush that we just emptied from the gray paint. So we're going to use these two to do the metals. So everybody's aware. Now this is going to be about 50-50, or actually about 2 parts
Flow Improver, 1 part paint. It's kind of goopy. We're using the Army Painter matte black. That's the only thing I like from Army Painter. Only thing I've really tried and played around with, but I don't really like the, well, no, it's not necessarily true, but, yeah. Anyway. It's paint. It's paint. It's my own opinion. So we're gonna bring some darkness and some brightness into this both at the same time. So I've got black and aluminium here. That being said, some of the higher end gunpla kits definitely complex. They're definitely pretty hard. Some of the Warhammer stuff, not so bad. They're fairly straightforward. You're gonna find more difficulty with things like KDM and Malifaux and stuff like that than you will with Warhammer. Warhammer is usually not too bad, and it's well documented, so the build instructions are pretty easy. So, that being said, not all the kits are super easy either. Some of the bigger kits are kind of fiddly, so they're not all easy. So I've got a bit of the aluminium in this. We're going to bring just a little bit of highlighting here, and this isn't going to take much. Check this out. There we go. That's all it takes to get a little bit of shine there. And we're also going to get the little bit around the edge there to just bring out a little bit of highlight there, so it looks like that from the front. That's another thing we can do as well, is bring in the light directionally. So hitting these ridges from the front a little bit will bring them out, and that's just a few little spritzes. You don't have to really take a whole lot to add a whole lot of lighting effect here. I should be a little bit more careful. Some of that wash is still technically drying, but it is what it is. KDM Mini, yeah. I've only built a few KDM. They're gorgeous minis, but man, they're very difficult to build. Very fiddly. Malifaux's been about the same level for me from what I've seen. I built a lot more Malifaux, and oh my god. I still don't know how Abuela Ortega goes together. But I put her together. Does that make sense? Probably not. Yeah, that's the other big part too, is the resin stuff. I mean, even the plastic minis, I don't know about you guys, but the plastic KDM seems a bit brittle too. Just a me thing. All right, let's work on this statue here. So we're gonna add a little bit of directional with the. So we're taking this very thin. Can you see this on my right here? This is how thin we're applying this. We're gonna have to worry about clogs here, but yeah. And I'm gonna hit the very highest point because I want that to look very shiny and prominent. It's a good focal point. We'll hit a little bit here on the rump, a little bit here on the tail. Back of the hair would look good. And we're doing like a little bit of a general kind of just spritz down from the top. So now we have a nice aged, worn look. Kind of like a bronzy look with the browns in it now. Oops. That's okay. There we go. Stop fucking with it. It's good. It's good. It's good. It's good. It's okay. There we go. All right. That looks great. That actually looks great. So this is just nothing but this is nothing but airbrush and washes on this. So no, not even a hand brush. Well, no, a little bit of hand brush for the washes, obviously, but yeah. Now, before we finish that, let's add a little bit of black back in. So the one thing I always want to point out to people is adding shade back into your model
Here's a great way to add a whole lot of depth and a lot of character without a whole lot of work. And we have a very thin amount of black in here. And you'll notice I'm spraying up. So I'm spraying upwards to the model. See, this is kind of like reverse zenithal shading. A lot of people are familiar with zenithal now. This is like the inverse of it to apply shadow. It doesn't quite work exactly the same. You might need to work some of that paint into recesses, just because of the nature of the topography of the mini, right? The way that everything is built. It is what it is, but it still adds a little bit of shade there without a whole lot of effort. So there you go, a little bit of shade. Looking good.
Ooh, Panzer from Das Werk. Ooh, bought it around a year ago. Got to the individual track links. We're gonna add some shadow to these as well. Starting again this week, and now I'm sitting
3M going vents to the hull. That's awesome, Krabby. I'm glad you got inspired enough to get back into it. That's awesome. That's a big thing with models and painting overall. I think is just sometimes getting started is the hardest thing to do, and we forget that. Writing a little bit of this black paint just to the underside of both the metal and the woodwork. Like I said earlier, we're going to add a little bit of green into this wood, so we're not done with that yet, but I want to add that. I want to go ahead and start adding the shade in. Just a little bit of wet shade there. Dude, come back. Just wasn't sure when. That's good. That's good. Want to try some military tanks? Yeah, military stuff is interesting. I haven't done enough. There are a couple of scale modelers on Twitch. I'm going to go ahead and shout him out. Melonhead Orion. He's a fantastic one to look up if you're interested in military stuff. And I dig it, and I think it's something that we as mini painters should really pay attention to, because there's a lot of techniques to learn from that. They've been around for years. They've got a lot of great tech that we've already absorbed into this medium. They've got a lot more that we haven't. All right, again, same with the directional shading here. We're going to get some of the underparts of the bricks by doing this. There we go. A little bit of spritz there, a little bit of spritz here. Enhance that shadow. Nice and messy on the pole. Usually I don't recommend using pure black on this, but we've been mixing browns and stuff into it already, so that's fine. We're actually going to mix a little bit of green. We're going to empty that out. So on two of these pieces, I'm basically done. We're gonna do a little bit of a touch up on that, but we're not done with these yet. I said I was gonna break out some green ink, so yeah. Building Russian Zvestas in the 80s. Oh, that's cool. That is cool stuff. There's a lot of cool mini history too that I've been learning about. It's been really fun kind of going down this whole path of learning how to paint minis and getting into the hobby and stuff. There's a whole lot of things that I didn't think I'd be interested in or get interested in.
Getting into stenciling has been really fun because I never thought I'd be interested in street art, but man, now I love it. I look for it. It's really fun.
Doesn't remember much. Fair enough, fair enough. Hopefully he's got at least a couple stories to share. Alright, we've got a bit of green ink. And we're going to shade this, and this is going to give us a little bit of a insinuation of moss, insinuation of various greenery and life and biomass, right? Hold on a second. And this is very subtle. We don't need to go crazy on this. I've got a very small amount of green ink from scale 75 here. And I'm going to tint the bottom part of the stonework here with a bit of this green until we're starting to get a little bit of shade that I like. You see that green starting to come in? You know, even if it's sharing kind of some of the passion about doing stuff like that, some of the good times, I mean, even that's worthwhile. Quarter of a nail-sized piece. Yeah, little fiddly bits are fun. That's what makes Malifaux fun too. Oh my god. There we go. A little bit of green there, right in on our well. We're gonna put some green on the wood too. Definitely on the inside. So spraying it up on the inside. All the moss and the slime and the grossness comes out of that well. There you go. You'll see it. Alright, so we bring a little bit into these as well. Kind of tint the wood a little bit. Don't worry, we're not done with this wood. Get a little bit up on the underside of the barrel here too. These are real subtle shades. We're not adding a whole lot of green here. Just adding enough. All right. We're going to do one last little blast here. Oh, I was going to bring some green into this too. Hold on. We're going to do one last little blast before we finish off our airbrushing section. Bring some green into this. See how gross and grody that underneath part is. And in the shadowed part, this corner over here, we're going to bring some green in. You might be asking why I'm doing that. Because of this. Let's go ahead and bring this off. And I need to get some of the sticky tack off the bottom of this, but this is the piece that stands on top. So once this is done, that'll look like that. All right. Let's go ahead and finish this off. Let's get the wood out here. And really, you've got a pretty decent set of materials at this point. You can pretty much bring these out onto the table. They look good enough, but I want to bring a little bit of brightness here so they're a little bit more visible. Hey, sport. Everything all right? Cool. It's my wife walking around, being all sneaky, being all helpful. She's awesome. She saved my butt today. Some idiot didn't put the freaking car seat in the car when he went to pick up the kid. Oops. We're bringing out Secret Weapon Handlewood. This is from their weathering acrylic sets. This is a really good tan khaki tone. And we're going to use this to bring out some of the ridges here. This may be a little bit off for what I'm doing, but that's okay. Go. Oh, a little bit down low. Hold on. There we go. Nice and quick and dirty. So one of the things that I'm doing, and something that you might notice, is some of the areas look more painted than others. That's kind of on purpose. I'm using the angles of the wood here to help me kind of break out different shades of tone. Nothing fancy, nothing crazy. Just trying to hit a little bit of that. Jesus, Deviston. Oh my God. Yeah, no, don't worry. I'm not gonna. Alright, there we go.
Not quite what I wanted, but that is okay. We'll keep working that. Alright, so we got a couple of touches here I want to do before we finish these out. We'll call them done. That's the best part. If you have any questions at this point, great time to float them out there. I'm totally open for some questions here. We're going to finalize these out. So now we're at the point where we can do a couple of different things to finish weathering them in. I've got this rope just with a base tone. I'm going to use some of that baby poop from before. So that kind of green-brown here works out really well as a shade tone. That'll bring out a little bit of that definition there. Another thing that we can look at doing here too is let's bring out a little bit of, I'm just going to bring this out on the palette here. Show you what I mean. I'm going to bring out, this is our dark warm gray and our bright warm gray from earlier that we used for the stone. Why am I bringing both of them out? We can do a little bit of quick and dirty dry brushing / edge highlighting. It doesn't have to be edge highlighting doesn't have to be dirty, or it doesn't have to be super clean or anything like that, and especially in this. So if you do some subtle blends here, there we go. Load this brush. Just mix up a little bit of both here, so it's not pure high tone, and then we'll just do some dry brushing around the side of this to get some texture out of our stone. Other things that you can bring into this, bringing in blues, bringing in some more greens and stuff like that is also not a bad idea. But that stone's all worked up. A little bit of edge highlighting after the airbrush stage goes a long way. So we can do the same thing here with our statue podium. And again, I'm just using a really crappy old brush. I haven't used a nice hand brush tonight. The airbrushes are the only things of quality I've really used brush-wise. You know, terrain's usually kind of rough and tumble, so there's no reason to get too worked up if something doesn't go quite the way you want. Let's keep going. Not to mention that the Panzer ability is your first. Hey, well, hey, congratulations on that. That's a big thing. That in itself is a big thing. Congratulations. We were just talking about it earlier. Sometimes the hardest thing to do is to start. We're getting out some of that handle wood, and I'm going to try to edge out. And you can take your time with something like this. The individual wood panels. This is very defined here on these wood panels. We can hit the edges of those. A little bit of something like that brings a lot of character out. So we've got nice dark wood. A little bit of definition here. Hopefully everything's going great. Hopefully you're getting good results and you're happy with it. That's always the dream. It's always the dream. Being happy with your work. Someday I'll be happy with my work. Someday. There we go. Same thing can be done with some of the metallics here too, if you really want to. Going back to that aluminium and doing some edge highlights or some dry brushing can add some extra texture highlights in. So that's another way to bring this up another step. And again, don't be afraid to bring in color, especially on the metallics. Notice how I've got just kind of some random scratches and scrapes and messiness here? That works. It works. It looks like wood grain. It doesn't need to be pretty. Again, this is get it going, get it started, keep it moving. Do 20 of these. They look great together. I don't know why you'd need 20 cannons, but if you're running a D&D game that needs that many cannons, I want in. That sounds awesome. Just saying. I like playing rogues. Name is Darkstone. It's totally not. Recommending rubber tracks. In my mind, I said, how hard can it be? And they, oh no, yeah. Would dipping a model into a wash work better than painting the wash on? So one of the things that I mentioned about a lot of washes that I do, Krabby, is that, oh, there's one thing that I want to do before we completely finish out all of these. It's control. So with washes and things like that, a lot of times I want to exercise more control over things. Now, what we've been working on tonight, we've been applying washes wholesale over, and that's worked out well enough with a big brush. We're just loading it up, slapping the washes on. That would work if I'm doing the whole model and I wanted to dip it in there. That would work. Now you need a lot of that wash to make sure you fully submerge it and stuff like that. But another part of that too is you want to also make sure that the wash doesn't gather too much in certain places. It doesn't. It's not too thin over other places. You kind of want to work it around and make sure that wash is distributed as it dries. So you can get results doing that, and I've done similar things. There are techniques that people use, like min wax. It's called dipping. Let's not get into that. But regardless, there are techniques that basically do like a whole model, kind of like dip and texture. They can work, but it's less control over where things go. So that's kind of what you give up doing that. A lot of times I'm bringing in washes and shades and stuff in very specific parts of the model. So that's another thing to consider too. A lot of times once you're at least part way into the model, you might want to shade or tint or wash or do something where you bring that in, and you don't want to get it on the rest of the model. You want to make sure it's in a very specific area. So the answer, unfortunately, is it depends on what you want, but that's the big caveat. Like, you know, what can you touch? How much wash and shade you have, etc. So, hopefully that makes sense, and I'm not just kind of blathering. I'm blathering. Let's see. I want to use all this. Let's get out our burnt orange. I'm going to get out burnt orange from Pro Acryl. Fan of the Pro Acryl. And we're going to do a little bit of stippling technique. So this is another weathering and texturing technique you can use to get a little bit of extra out of your mini. And actually, you know what? I'm going to put this out. It's right here on my paper. You can see where that burnt orange comes out. It's a little bit of a terracotta color. So let's get out a good stippling brush. This, funny enough, say hello to my mermaid brushes. I got these at Hobby Lobby. I want to say like it's a synthetic pack of brushes, like 6 or 7 of them, very large, for like $5. And fucking good. So that's why they have mermaid scales on them. It's very pretty. It's my favorite colors. So first of all, we can always hit the edges here. But not a random enough stipple on that first part. Oops. That's okay. Luckily, even doing this is a little bit better than almost dry brushing that in. Which, yes, you can dry brush this in. Let's get out a little bit more of that. Failure, but still success. Still see a little bit there. In fact, if I wanted to take this up a notch, I've got a little bit of that handle wood right there. I've got some other brushes I can do this with. It's probably not the best, but I'll get the edges mostly. Just going to show you. Yeah, that handle would some nice things. There we go. A little bit of a ridge there I'm trying to grab. All right. That being said, we're all done. We knocked out a bunch of our terrain. This is good to go for some tabletop ready stuff. We don't need to go any farther than this. I am going to take this up just a little bit more than. But yeah, again, if you have any questions, any concerns, any ideas that you want to run by me, I am totally here for those. It's a great time to do so. I'm adding some of this handle wood here as an edge highlight to the wood to add just a little bit of noise here. Yeah, don't really have too much else to share tonight. But I do hope to come back and do a little bit more next time. I don't know if I've got scheduled up for next month. I need to double check that. So I had some ideas. I want to do some stencil work with you guys. Hey, there we go. Thank you for the follow. Compared to Warhammer and military painting videos, and the main difference I've seen is that the tank modelers are exceptionally good at using different shades of the same color to highlight the original color. Yes, you tend to get a lot more. I guess a good way of putting it is a lot of the scale modelers, military modelers, focus on things like modulation, even in weathering and stuff like that. They focus on using a lot of pigments. So things are a lot more shades and gradients, and that tends to be because the scale models and military models are a bigger scale. So painting at different scales also gives you a lot of different. What's what I'm looking for? There's a lot of variation between painting at different scales. So I'm going to give you a very good example here because it's something that personally affects me. I paint a lot of the game Judgment. Judgment has been traditionally a 54 millimeter scale game, and they are changing down to a 32 millimeter scale game. I'm having a really cool time painting these two minis. These are literally the same mini at each of those different scales. As they transition to, oh my god, a fly just flew into my eye. It's terrible. Oh, that was terrible. Sorry. Oh man. And painting these is kind of a different experience for each one, even though I'm painting them at the same time. So there's a lot of different techniques and things that I can do at this scale that don't apply at this scale, and vice versa. And some of the things totally translate over, so it just really depends. I find that the scale modelers focus on that modulation a lot because they're imitating more real life stuff. Where, especially in Warhammer, it's a lot more fantastical, unrealistic. You know, we're dealing with sci-fi demons and Griffin Riders and Stormcat and whatever. So it's partially style, it's partially subject matter as well. I find that when you start looking into people who are painting more like busts and full figure models as well, you'll find that they focus a lot on the airbrush work to get a lot of their gradients and a lot of skin tones, and it's a lot more lot of neutral tones, a lot of skin tones, a lot of focus on those gradations, and a lot of focus on light too. So that's a big thing as well. Let's take a look at what we've done tonight. So, like I said, we've taken 3 WizKids kits and we've basically put them together. All I need to do for this is glue the bronze statue on top of it. We didn't use a single bit of bronze paint on those, believe it or not. We just made it bronze through sheer willpower. But we've got a nice bronze statue. Boom, there we go. We've got not 1 but 2 lovely cannons for our pirate ship. So there we go. A couple of cannons ready to go. And a well. A nice well. Is what it is, right? That's what we've knocked out tonight. Yeah, I don't think I have anything else. I think we've handled all the questions and concerns. I just want to say here, I'm gonna let me switch it over to. Oh, hold on. That's not what I want. Screw it. Here we go. Now we'll leave it there. All right, sorry, switching through random scenes. I don't need to switch through. It's gonna go for my face cam, but I haven't turned everything off. I just want to say thank you for everybody coming out. And I will be doing this again next month. That is the plan. And of course, stealth shout out to myself. I stream on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. You can find me at Reiner72 here on Twitch and YouTube, Instagram, all those social media things. You can find me there. Obviously, check out Tabletop. They've been nothing but awesome to me. Hit my affiliate link if you plan on making any purchases here locally. And yeah, I think that's everything. Let's go ahead and hit it.